So Israel, this war between Israel and Hamas, of course, is still going on. Reports now are that Escalation is now under attack. And reports are now Hezbollah is starting to get into this in Lebanon, in Israel's northern border. There's been border skirmishes between the two, but now that's starting to intensify. So Hezbollah is getting into this. Now, if you understand, Hezbollah has about 150,000 rockets pointed at Israel. And Israel says that if Hezbollah gets into this war, full stop, well, then they don't have the capability of defending themselves, because they're going to have to deal with Gaza, but then they're going to have to deal with the northern border, and it's just too much for the Israelis to handle. And the Iron Dome will not be able to protect them from that barrage of rockets that they intend to fire at Israel. So here we see the proxies of Iran beginning to engage in warfare with Israel. And now everybody's starting to acknowledge that Iran's behind it all. The Wall Street Journal came out and said that Iran is behind all of this. Everybody knows Hezbollah, Islamic Jihad, Hamas, they're all Iranian proxies that are doing Iran's bidding. They know that Iran was behind this planning that happened on Saturday. Iran is the hand behind it all. And of course, we've been saying this for years now, that Iran is the big enemy of the Jewish state and the United States. And of course, when the war began, they showed Iranian parliament screaming and yelling, "Death to America, death to Israel." So we all know Iran's behind it all. Now, what baffles me is that the United States sends these regimes money. $6 billion of American tax money went to the Iranian regime. Not to mention the money that they had on skids when Obama was president, sending money to Iran. And of course, that was all secret, but of course the secret got out, and you saw the pictures of American cash on skids heading towards Iran. And then they use that money to sponsor terrorism, and then they turn around and attack Israel, they attack Americans, they attack the American army that's in the Middle East, and then these politicians turn around and lament about terrorism. Stop funding terrorism. Stop sending your tax dollars to these terrorist regimes. I mean, how simple is it? But no, these idiots just continue on this path. I just don't understand it. You know, when these left-wing lunatics are in power, common sense just goes out the window. It's just unbelievable what's going on. But anyways, Iran is behind all of this, and I can't help but feel that this is just everything that's going on, it feels just like 9/11 all over again. Now we know 9/11 was prophesied in the Bible in Daniel the 11th chapter, verse 44, where tidings out of the east and out of the north shall trouble him that's the king of the north. And who is the king of the north? NATO, the president of the United States. And here I'm feeling the same thing is happening all over again. It says, tidings out of the east and out of the north shall trouble him. Now, what are these tidings? Or where is this east and north? Well, we show you in our booklet, The Middle Eastern Prophecy, and I urge you to download it free of charge, The Middle Eastern Prophecy. You will see that, actually, it's not free anymore. It's a $10 charge, and when you send us $10, we will, within one business day, we will send it into your inbox. And then you can download it from your inbox in PDF file format, and you can read it from there. But we show you that east and north means old Persia and Media, which consists of Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Iran. And it says these tidings, these reports, trouble him. And of course, they've got reports out of Afghanistan of jihad against the West when the Taliban was ruling it there with Osama bin Laden. And it troubled the United States. It troubled NATO. And it says, therefore, he shall go out with great fury to destroy and to utterly make away or annihilate many. With great fury. Do we remember the fury when 9/11 happened? The fury across the NATO nations. They were all united in this purpose of getting rid of terrorism in Afghanistan. And now we're starting to see the same thing again. We see this unity in the NATO alliance. They're all behind Israel. They're all backing Israel. And this reminds me of what happened back in 9/11. They were all behind George Bush, the United States. They were all behind, all the NATO nations were all united together, and they went into Afghanistan to get rid of terrorism. And I'm seeing the same thing again. Of course, the NATO allies came out with a joint statement saying how they're 100% behind Israel. We're seeing this unity once again. We saw it back in 9/11, and now we're seeing it again. And we have been saying that the biblical prophecies show that NATO is going to go into the state of Israel, Judah. They're going to go in there to save Judah. NATO's going to do it. It says that out of the north a smoke is going to come. That means a huge army. And this smoke is going to come and it's going to occupy Judah to save Judah. And here we see the unity that we see in the NATO alliance, this joint statement that came out. Canada wasn't in this joint statement because the leader that we have right now in Canada is an international embarrassment. So they didn't even call Canada to be part of this joint statement, but Canada is part of NATO. This joint statement saying that they're 100% behind Israel. Now, like I said, this reminds me a lot of 9/11. 9/11 fulfilled the prophecy of Daniel, the 11th chapter, verse 44. This is the war on terrorism. Then we see in verse 45, it says, and he, that's the king of the north, the president of the United States who leads NATO, it says, he shall plant the tabernacles of his palace, that's military occupation, between the sea and in the glorious holy mountain. So here we see troop deployments, military occupation in the state of Israel. The king of the north is the president of the United States that leads NATO. And it says that he's going to do it. He's going to plant military bases in Israel, and he's going to have the full backing of the NATO allies. We're seeing it again, folks. They were completely united when they went in, when they wanted to fight the Taliban in Afghanistan, which fulfilled Daniel 11:44, and now we're seeing that they're completely united behind Israel. And is that going to kick off this prophecy in Daniel the 11th chapter, verse 45, where he plants the tabernacles of his palace between the seas and in the glorious holy mountain? It's starting to shape up that way. And we're going to have to wait and see. But I'm telling you, if Judah, the Jews, lose this war, because the Bible says that Judah shall be broken. If they lose this war, if Judah loses, well, guess who's going to step in to save Judah? Number one, the President of the United States and the United States of America. They will step in to save Judah. And it says here the King of the North is going to do it. And the King of the North leads that great alliance called NATO. And you know the NATO allies are going to be right behind Judah. The NATO allies are going to be right behind America, rather. And they're going to be united in this saving of Judah. Now I want to show you Isaiah the 14th chapter. Isaiah 14. I keep looking over at the television because Joe Biden is about to make a statement on this war. And when Joe Biden does make that statement on this war, we'll just kind of sign off. We'll keep the live stream going. I'll just sign off just to see what Joe Biden has to say about it, and then we'll come back on and continue this discussion of biblical prophecy. We are seeing this might be the beginning of the end of NATO. If Judah loses this war against Iran's proxies, then we know that this prophecy of Isaiah, the 14th chapter, verse 29 to 32, is going to be fulfilled. Now it says here in Isaiah 14:29, it says, "Rejoice not, thou whole Palestine." So here we see Palestine rejoicing. It says, "Because the rod of him that smote thee is broken." So here we see conflict between this rod and the people of Palestine. And who is this rod? All biblical prophecies, biblical commentaries will tell you that this rod is Judah. And it says that the rod of him that smote thee is broken. So here we see a war between the Palestinians and Judah. And it says here that Judah shall be broken. So in this war, Judah is broken. It's not winning this war. And it says, "For out of the serpent's root," a serpent is a symbol of the enemy. And of course, Judah is the enemy of the Palestinians, and vice versa. And it says, out of the serpent's root, Judah's root. Where does Judah have her roots? The state of Israel, where do they have their roots? Well, they have it, of course, with the British mandate that took place in 1917. Of course, the United States has been funding the state of Israel. Judah's root is in Ephraim and Manasseh, Israel, the United States, the British Commonwealth of Nations. And of course, you can read our booklet online free of charge. That one's free of charge. The United States and the British Commonwealth in Prophecy. And you will see that the United States and Britain are Israel. And Judah, the state of Israel, wouldn't exist without them. Judah's root is in the United States and Britain. And it says here, "For out of Judah's root, the serpent's root, shall come forth a viper, an even stronger army." And God says this is why you shouldn't rejoice, because a stronger army is coming. "And his fruit shall be as a fiery flying serpent." And then it says here, notice in verse 30, God's talking to the Palestinians. He's saying here, "I will kill your root." So here God says that the Palestinians have a root. Hamas has a root. And what is the root of the current government, current administration of the Palestinians? Who is their root? Where does it come from? Where do they get funded? Where does the funding come from? Where do the weapons come from? Iran. And everybody knows that Hezbollah, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, these are all Iranian proxies. Iran is the root. Hamas and Hezbollah, they are the branches. And God says, "I will kill your root." This is going to be the beginning of the end of Iran as we know it. "I will kill your root," God says, with famine. And how are they doing that with famine? How are they starving the Iranian regime? Well, with, of course, the sanctions that's been going on, and they're going to ramp them up. And God says, "And he," that's the viper, the fiery flying serpent, which is, of course, Israel, Britain and America, NATO, it says, "He shall slay thy remnant," or your branches. So here we see the branches, the proxies of Iran, in conflict with Judah. Judah is going to be broken to the point where, of course, NATO is going to step in and save them, as we see here in verse 31. "Howl," God says. Here they are rejoicing in verse 29, but then God says, "Howl, O gate, cry, O city, thou whole Palestine, art dissolved." They're dissolved in fear. And it says, "For there shall come from the north," who is the king of the north? The President of the United States, who heads NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. "For out of the north, there shall come from the north a smoke." And a smoke is always a symbol of a huge army. So out of the north, there's going to come a smoke. And then it says, what shall one, verse 32, then answer the messengers of the nation? Here, the Palestinians send messengers to the king of the north, and the king of the north says to them, what shall one then answer the messengers of the nation? And then the king of the north says to them, that the Lord hath founded Zion, and the poor of his people shall trust in it. Basically saying this is God's land, the Jews are God's people, and they have a right to it. That's what it's basically saying. Now in Isaiah the 22nd chapter, here's another prophecy about Jerusalem. There are three prophecies here about, separate prophecies here about Jerusalem. Now here's a breaking news. The defense minister is going to take part in NATO meetings. He's going to Brussels right now to speak to NATO. So here we see NATO, of course, getting involved. And of course, NATO is going to get involved. They're going to come from the north, this huge army, a smoke, and they're going to come in and save Judah, because Judah, it says, shall be broken. So it's all shaping up, folks. But first we got to see, is Judah going to lose this war? The Bible says that Judah is going to be wounded. And so we haven't seen that wound yet. But when we see that wound, if Judah does become broken, wounded, and we see NATO step in, then we know these prophecies are going to be fulfilled. Notice Isaiah the 22nd chapter, verse 7. It says this, and it shall come to pass that thy choicest valleys shall be filled with chariots, and the horsemen shall set themselves in array at the gate. So here again, we see a huge army occupying the state of Israel, more specifically Jerusalem. And it says this, it says, and he discovered the covering of Judah. Notice there's a covering over Judah. They talk about the iron dome that protects Judah. Now, in the NLT version of the Bible, it says that Judah's defenses will be diminished. And fighting off these guys with the Iron Dome, fighting off in every direction, they said that the Iron Dome can't protect them forever. If they continue to throw these missiles at them, I mean, Benjamin Netanyahu already went to Biden asking for more money so they can arm the Iron Dome again to continue to protect them. But they said if Hezbollah gets into this war and they start firing missiles, the Iron Dome is not going to do them any good. So it says that the covering of Judah, he discovered the covering of Judah. It says, and the NLT says that the Judah's defenses shall be diminished. So the defenses are diminished. And then it says here, ye have seen also the breaches of the city of David, that they are many. So here we see Jerusalem is has been under attack, and it is damaged. It says the breaches of the city of David, they are many, and you will gather together the waters of the lower pool. And ye have numbered the houses of Jerusalem, and the houses have ye broken down to fortify the walls. So here they are rebuilding Jerusalem to protect it, this army from the north. So here we see that Jerusalem has come under attack. Jerusalem is damaged, not destroyed, but damaged. And the king of the north is coming in to save it and to repair it. So that hasn't happened yet. Judah hasn't received its wound yet. But when it does, we will see NATO step in and occupy Judah. And when that happens, it says here in the biblical prophecies, Daniel the 11th chapter, verse 45. So here we see NATO all in. Here we see NATO all in. They're united. They're behind the President of the United States. They're all in. They're all united behind Israel. It says, he, the king of the north, shall plant the tabernacles of his palace, that's military occupation, between the seas and in the glorious holy mountain. When we see NATO occupy Palestine, occupy the state of Israel, well then it says, he shall come to his end and none shall help him. NATO is going to break apart. So it'll be the last time we will see NATO unified After that, NATO will begin to break apart. You see, Iran, they don't want Saudi Arabia to make peace with Israel, with the Abraham Accords. Because if they do that, other Muslim nations will follow. And of course, that'll leave Iran with absolutely no power in the Middle East at all. They don't want peace with Israel. And they figured, let's do it now because this American president is weak. This American president is weak, so let's do it now because under Donald Trump, we won't be able to get away with it. And if you just saw President Biden rambling on about something that happened 50 years ago, and half the time you can't even really understand them. I mean, the man belongs in a home, not running the United States of America. So the people around the world see this, and this is why we're having so many problems that we do around the world. The foreign policy of the United States is a shambles. Just like the foreign policy up here in Canada, it is in shambles because of the fecklessness, the weakness of our leaders. But he says he stands behind Israel. We got Israel's back. Other European nations say the same thing. We see this resolve. We see this unity. We haven't seen this kind of unity since 9/11. And in 9/11, they went into Afghanistan, fulfilling the prophecy of Daniel, the 11th chapter, verse 44. And again, we're seeing this unity. Is this unity going to fulfill this prophecy of Daniel, the 11th chapter, verse 45? That he shall plant the tabernacles of his palace between the seas and in the glorious holy mountain. Israel's defense minister is going to Brussels right now in a NATO meeting. He's going to have a meeting with the NATO leaders. Is NATO going to get into this? The president says that they're going to do everything they can so Israel can defend itself. Now, does that mean even military occupation, if necessary? Well, I think so. If Judah loses this war, if Israel loses this war, the United States has no other choice but to step in and occupy the Israeli state. So we're just going to have to wait and see. If Judah loses, if Israel, the state of Israel loses, and they receive a wound, they are broken, then NATO is just going to have to step in. The United States is going to have to step in. The King of the North, the President of the United States, has to step in. Now again, if you want to know who the King of the North is, I urge you to get our booklet, The Middle Eastern Prophecy, and of course, we will show you in the biblical prophecies who is the King of the North. Now I know the churches of God out there still believe that the King of the North is the beast power that's going to rise, but we show you in that booklet, it just doesn't make any sense. And this is how I came to light about this King of the North. It says here, it says, he shall come to his end, and none shall help him. The churches of God say that's the beast power. Well, how can that be? It says he shall come to his end, and none shall help him. And then it says, at that time, when the King of the North comes to his end, it says the great tribulation is going to start. In Daniel 12, verse 1. How can that be? When in Revelation, the 17th chapter, it plainly shows that, or the 19th chapter, the beast power comes to his end after the tribulation, during the day of the Lord, during the second coming of Jesus Christ. Isn't that a contradiction? How can that be? How can the King of the North come to his end before the tribulation when he comes to his end in Revelation the 19 after the tribulation? That's how I started to realize, wait, there's something here that we've missed. I went into deep study, and I found in Daniel the 2nd chapter there are two phases down at the feet and toes. There's the potter's clay phase, then there's the miry clay phase. And the potter's clay phase comes first, as it plainly says in the prophecy, that the miry clay is when God strikes the image at the 10 toes during the miry clay phase. That's the end. So before that comes the potter's clay phase. And who is the potter's clay in the context of nations? Jeremiah, the 18th chapter, verse 6. Let me just go to it right quickly and quote it to you verbatim. Jeremiah, the 18th chapter, verse 6. And it says this, O house of Israel. Who is the house of Israel? This is not the house of Judah, the Jews. It's the house of Israel. Who is the house of Israel? Again, read our booklet, United States and Britain in Prophecy, and you will find that the house of Israel is the United States, Britain, Canada, the other tribes of Israel, Finland, Sweden, Denmark, and so on, France. This is the house of Israel. Now notice, O house of Israel, cannot I do with you as this potter, says the Eternal? Behold, as the clay is in the potter's hand, so are ye in my hand, O house of Israel. So here we see the potter's clay with the iron in Daniel 2. What is that? And it says the kingdom shall be divided. We see Israelite nations in an alliance with the iron called the EU, which is a financial alliance. And then we see the military alliance of Israelite nations with Germany, with Italy, in an alliance called NATO. The kingdom is divided between two alliances, the EU and NATO. This is the potter's clay phase. And here we see in Daniel the 11th chapter, verse 40 through 45, the potter's clay phase. And it comes to an end. Then after that comes the miry clay phase. And that is when Christ comes, who is symbolized as the rock in Daniel 2, that strikes it in the feet and toes, which is iron mixed with miry clay. And that's what you read in Revelation, the 19th chapter. So now we know who is the king of the north. And now Daniel 11:40 through 45 makes absolute sense. And we show you in Daniel the 11th chapter, verses 40 through 45 in our booklet, Middle Eastern Prophecy. We show you that Daniel 11:40 through 43 is the Gulf War that took place in 1990 and 91. Daniel 11:44 is the war on terrorism that took place in 2001. And now we're down to 11:45, that he shall plant the tabernacles of his palace between the seas and in the glorious holy mountain. Why does he do that? Isaiah 14:29 to 32 shows he comes in to save Judah, because Judah is broken due to Iran's proxies, branches, and the root is Iran. And God says, I will slay that root with famine. It says he, the viper, which is the United States and Britain, NATO, shall slay your remnant. He's going to slay that root. Iran is going to be destroyed. And I show you that in our booklet, Persia in Bible Prophecy, as well as Judah shall be broken. And I put the links in the description there, in the video description there. And you can go to those booklets. You can go to those booklets and you can read about Persian Bible prophecy, and Judah shall be broken. Iran is now going to come to its end. Its reign is going to be over. The United States is going to attack Iran. And by doing that, because Iran is part of this Shanghai Corporation organization, guess who they are going to upset? China. And China, it says, is going to give NATO that deadly blow. In Numbers 24th chapter, verse 24, it says that the ship shall come from the coast of Kittim and shall afflict Asher and Eber. Who is Asher? Who is Eber? Asher is end-time Germany. Read our booklet, Germany in Prophecy. We'll prove that to you. And Eber is the Hebrew peoples. Here we see Germany and the Hebrew peoples. They have a common enemy. Obviously, it's NATO. So NATO is going to receive that deadly blow from China. And then it says here in Jeremiah, the 30th chapter, I've pounded this over and over again, but it's crucial to Bible prophecy. It says, all your allies, Jeremiah 30, verse 14, All your allies have forgotten you. They seek you not. For I have wounded you with the wound of an enemy, with the chastisement of a cruel one, for the multitude of thine iniquity, because your sins were increased. Why criest thou for thine affliction? There's that affliction that we read in Numbers, the 24th chapter, verse 24. So when they receive that deadly blow, NATO is going to break apart. They're going to abandon the Article 5 of the Charter. It's going to be such a deadly blow that the NATO allies are just going to throw their hands up in the air and just give up and abandon the alliance. And that will be the end of the potter's clay phase. And then it'll be the end of the EU as well, as we've been saying that the EU is going to come to an end. And then will come the final rise of the end-time beast power, a 10-nation combine, possibly called the United States of Europe, and it's going to mix itself with the miry clay nations. That's the Black African, North African nations, including Egypt, including Palestine. They're all going to be mixed with the miry clay, and they are going to come in and occupy Judah, take over Judah, and they're going to subjugate European Israel, Britain, Denmark, Sweden, Finland. They're going to subjugate these nations. And then Ezekiel 38 shows that China is going to come down and occupy and take over North America, Australia, and New Zealand. This is all laid out in our booklets. China in prophecy, Germany in prophecy, United States in prophecy, Middle East in prophecy. We've been pounding this message for 22 years, folks. And if this war is any indication, if Judah is wounded, if Judah is broken to the point that NATO steps in, then we're going to see these prophecies fulfilled right in front of our eyes, ladies and gentlemen. So we're just going to have to wait and see. But it looks like things are shaping up that way. Escalation is now under attack. Hezbollah is starting to get into this war. Iran, they're reporting that Iran, here again, they're going to have a meeting in Brussels via video conference on Thursday. Lloyd Austin is en route to Brussels. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant is going to talk to NATO. So it seems that everything's shaping up that way. And Iran, one insider said that Iran wants to widen this war. And they're hoping that the United States gets into this war so they can widen this war even more. So Iran wants war. Its proxies are doing its bidding. They even call it, Israel's surrounded by Iran's proxies. A lot of people are calling it Iran's ring of fire. But God says, I'm going to slay that root. I'm going to slay that root with famine. He's going to use that army. He's going to use that army to kill this root. I will kill thy root with famine, and he shall slay thy remnant. God's going to slay Iran. He's going to slay these branches, these Iranian proxies, Hezbollah, Hamas. So they better get ready, because their time is coming where they are going to be destroyed. These terrorist regimes that are in the Middle East right now. So we are seeing, this could possibly be prophecy being fulfilled right in front of our eyes. All right, everyone. So don't forget to log on to our website, britishisrael.ca. Download some of these booklets. Some of these booklets aren't free. Some of them you do have to pay for, but it's only $10. Download some of these booklets. We have these links in the video description below to some of these free booklets that we have, like Judah Shall Be Broken, Persian Bible Prophecy, and you can read it free of charge. And don't forget to tell your friends and neighbors about this YouTube channel and share it on your social media accounts as well. So I'd like to thank everybody for joining me here on today's live stream. And let me just take one final look here. All right. I'd like to thank everybody for joining me on today's live stream. Thank you, Gregory, for your input in the chat. Thanks for joining me here on today's live stream, and we will continue to give you updates. If anything new develops, we'll come on live again and give you the updates, and of course wade through the biblical prophecies to show you what is happening. But when you want to understand Bible prophecy, the one vital key to understanding all of this is the identity of the United States and Britain. You can't understand Bible prophecy without that vital key. And if you want to understand that vital key, I urge you to log onto our website, britishisrael.ca. Go into the search and just punch in USA and British, or USA and Britain in Prophecy, and download that free booklet, The United States and the British Commonwealth in Prophecy. You cannot understand Bible prophecy without that vital key. It is that one key that unlocks all Bible prophecy. Who is the house of Israel? Because the house of Israel has a huge role to play in the end time biblical prophecies. And you cannot do the work of the watchman without that vital key. The work of the watchman is the most important work on this earth right now, ladies and gentlemen. It's the most important work on this earth. And we are dedicated to fulfill that commission of the preaching of the gospel of the kingdom of God and doing that work of the watchman. And the watchman, this watchman work is to whom? Well, notice Ezekiel, the 33rd chapter. And of course I did a video on this, if you want to check that out on our YouTube channel. Ezekiel 33:7. So thou, O son of man, I have set thee a watchman unto the house of Israel. Who's the house of Israel? The United States and Britain. Therefore you shall hear the word at my mouth, that's the Bible, and warn them from me. And Jesus Christ of Nazareth told his church to watch, to do that work of the watchman. So we are dedicated to fulfill this commission of the work of the watchman. So we will continue to give you updates on what's happening in this war. And again, as I keep insisting, if Judah, the state of Israel, that's who they are in Bible prophecy, the house of Judah, if Judah is broken, is wounded, to the point where NATO has to step in and save them, and you see NATO occupy the state of Israel, well then these prophecies are going to be fulfilled. Thanks everybody for joining me here on today's live stream, and we'll see you here real soon.